may just be one of the most versatile hooks in React. It is similar to state in that your variables can survive re-renders. A key difference between useRef and state, however, is that when you update your ref, you do not actually trigger a re-render of the component. That is because you actually mutate the ref object, but the object itself remains the same. One of the most popular ways for using useRef is to interact with the DOM. In fact, it's so popular to use refs that all of your HTML tags have a ref attribute, which allows you to use any ref you want to access your HTML. I will show you this example in a scroll example, which is super applicable for building a web page. Say, for example, you want the user to have the ability to scroll to a certain section or scroll to the top. useRef can be your best friend. But before we get into that, I'm just going to very quickly show you how useRef works. For the setup of our project, I will add a file to our components folder called scroll. I will also add some CSS and just paste some inline styling in. If you want to access the CSS, you can check out my GitHub linked below. I will use the RAFCE shortcut to create the skeleton of our component. I am also going to head over to our app file and import scroll from our components folder and add it to the bottom of our app component. If you're curious about how the candy jar timer was made, you can check out the project GitHub and my previous videos. Returning to scroll, let's import useRef and call the useRef hook at the top of our component. To declare a ref, I will use const, and let's call it ref object equals useRef, and let's set our initial value, which goes here, to 0. This initial value will get read on the first render, but on subsequent renders it will be ignored. If I was to console log ref object and head to our app, inspect the page, you will see that we have printed our ref object with its one property or key current, and that property is set to our initial value of 0. Back in our code, I will show you how we can mutate this ref object's current value. Using object.notation, ref object.current equals 5. Let's once again console log our ref object. On our initial render, the initial value is the current value. We then modify the current value to become 5. But no component re-render has happened. Back in our code, I'm going to use this next example to show you how we know useRef is not re-rendering our component. To do that, I'm going to need to use state, because every time state is modified, the component will re-render. And useEffect, because this hook will get triggered on each re-render. If you're curious about more details for either useState or useEffect, you can check out my videos linked in the description below. I'm first going to initialize our new state and its setter function to set render. And I will call on the useState hook, setting the default value to an empty string. I'm also going to make a useEffect function, console.log component re-rendered. I am going to change this div to a button and add an on-click event handler. Let's check out our application. I am going to refresh our page. As you can see, our initial value is console logged. Subsequently, the modified ref value is console logged. There's the double render, which is why we're seeing it twice. And the useEffect fired once because our component re-rendered. Now, if I was to click scroll, as you can see, that initial value is ignored. I mentioned previously that the initial value is only used on the first render and then is ignored on subsequent renders. This is that in action. If the component was re-rendering every time we changed useRef, we would see one more component re-rendered happening right here. I will get rid of all of this, and I'm going to get rid of this button. First, I will build the skeleton for our JSX. Our nav bar will house our 3 buttons that scroll to the picture that we care about. I will make a div that has the images, which we will display, and I will make a button where we scroll to top. Now let's fill these in one by one. I'm going to paste this array of image objects into our code, and I'm going to build our nav. The class name will add custom styling that is part of our scroll.css. Curly braces to include some functionality within our JSX. And I'll use the .map function on our images array to create a list. I will make a list item as the return value, and each list item is going to need a key to identify it. You can run into issues if you don't have a unique key. We will then return the image with the source equaling our image.source, and our alt tag to be image.alt. Finish with a closing tag for our image. Top of my component, I will make a ref object. I'm calling it listRef, setting the initial value to null, and I'll make that event handler. Index is our parameter. We're assigning the current value of our listRef object to a variable that's called listNode. We need a line of code to find the specific image element at the given index in our list. We use the query selector all method to select all the image elements that are children of list elements within the list node. Index accesses the image element at the particular index. We want a smooth scrolling animation. We will scroll to the nearest edge of the container. Scrolling to the bottom of our page, I just need to make sure that this is an unordered list. Copy and paste our logic for the list items. We now need to set the reference of our unordered list, our listRef object. And now let's check out our browser. If I click dog, we scroll to dog. Llama is hidden just due to some styling. I will go fix that. And cat. As you can see, we have a fully functional scroll feature. And now let's just add some tweaks and implement the scroll to top. Let's import our styles and finish our functionality. We will make another ref object called topRef. We'll also set this useRef initial value to null and make a scroll to top function. No arguments are needed. Window is a global object in our browser representing the current page. Scroll to is a built-in method that lets us scroll to the specified position. Top is the vertical position in pixels, and we will ensure a smooth scrolling animation with behavior. Let's go down and make our button. It'll need a reference. Ref is used to create a reference to a React component or DOM element. Clicking the button will now result in a smooth scroll to top. Let's add some text inside and check out our code. You'll see with the styling, our buttons for nav are now green, our pictures have been made smaller, and we have our scroll to top button. Click cat, dog, llama. If I'm at the bottom, I can click scroll to top, and it takes us to the very top of our page.